You're listening to episode 5 of the Feed You podcast.
Welcome to the Feed You podcast, giving you the real scoop on raising your business to new heights. Expert education, inspiration, and motivation to fuel your purpose, your passion, and your profits. Here's your host, Elisa Connor.
Hello. Welcome back to the Feed You podcast. I am so excited to have you here, and I am so grateful you are tuning in. I am grateful to each and every one of you that listens to this podcast. It really is a gift from the heart, and it means the world to me that you tune in, whether you're out for a walk, or you're riding your bike, or you're at the gym, or maybe even listening in your car. It means the world to me that you've tuned in, and I am so happy you're here. So thank you for tuning in. And this month, we've been talking all about mindset and how that affects your business, and today is no exception. We're going to move a little bit outside of mindset and talk about emotions and emotions that can be trapped in your molecular makeup, as well as beliefs that may be holding you back in your business. Our guest, I can't wait to introduce you to, is going to talk about how those patterns are set at a very young age, usually starting at about age 3 or 4, and then completed at around age 21, 22. And so a lot of these beliefs that we have around money and success and our fears and different things we hold on to, we really didn't have any control over creating those. They were created for us through experience and through childhood and through the people that influenced us as we were growing up in our life. Well, my guest, Teri Karjala, who I'll introduce you to in just a minute, believes and has worked with many people on releasing not only those thoughts and belief systems, but the emotions that are attached to those. And a lot of times when you have emotions that are surrounded around those belief systems, it's really hard to let them go because they just seem like they're so natural. And so Teri's going to walk us through some of the techniques that she uses and some of the philosophy and thought behind that, and hopefully give you some direction and some tips and tools to get you going, as well as helping you to move forward and thrive and grow your business past your wildest dreams and imagination. So let me tell you a little bit about Teri Karjala. She is not only the owner and executive director of the Creative Counseling Center here in Denver, but she's also a licensed professional counselor, a credentialed trauma therapist, an author, a teacher, a trainer, and a national keynote speaker. Holy moly. In addition, she's also been featured on local Denver area TV and radio shows, and she's been working in the counseling field since 1999. She works in both individual and group therapy counseling for children, adolescents, adults, and her clients currently are primarily women and female entrepreneurs living generally unfulfilled lives. They feel weighed down by limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, fear, anxiety, and depression, possibly due to past trauma. Through her truly integrative approach, Teri empowers her clients to create massive change and expand far beyond their wildest personal and professional dreams. So let's welcome Teri to the show. Welcome to the Feed You podcast. I am so excited to have Teri Karjala here as my guest, and she has a company called Talking with Teri, and you heard a little bit about her in the intro, but Teri, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to be here. So, as she said, I'm Teri Karjala, and women entrepreneurs hire me to ignite the magic within because most are consumed by fear, beat down by unconscious limiting beliefs, and without even knowing it, are addicted to self-sabotage, and they lack the tools to really get back on track. So I help them unleash their greatest transformation by clearing out the unconscious blocks that are holding them back personally and professionally to really catapult their business and to generate more money, more clients, with a lot less effort. So I originally got started with I've created a very successful counseling practice, and as of about a few weeks ago, it is officially running itself. And so I've taken, and over this course of probably 20, 25 years, just incorporated a lot of traditional counseling, 20 years of a counseling practice, and then applying the energy psychology, and then applying the principles of law of attraction to really help hone in to what people are needing to release those blocks that are holding people back in their business.
So I've had the experience of spending very brief periods with Terri, and she is phenomenal. And she really does not do herself justice when she's describing what she does. So a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we really are stuck, and we don't even realize we're stuck. And that's one of the things that I want you to talk about is that, we keep doing the same things over and over and over, and we expect to get different results, and we don't even realize why we can't get different results. So
Right.
will you describe to us a little bit about how to identify those stuck areas, or how we can see, ask ourselves questions so that we can bring those issues to the surface and we can start to deal with them, whether we have your help or a little bit on our own, and then we go and get help.
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, you're absolutely right. And I think it's the way the brain is designed. It has been said that 90% of the thoughts that we have every day are the thoughts that we've had the previous day. So if you think about that, like, we're just constantly recycling our thoughts. And if they're not serving us, we know that we have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and only 2,000 of those are conscious thoughts. So when we think we're running the show, we're really not. It's whatever our unconscious and subconscious thoughts are running the show with. And so most of those thoughts are negative. And so I would agree with you. Most people do not know that they're being held back. And if they do know, they're like, where, what is it, right? And so I talk a lot about self-sabotage. It's an unconscious place where, we're holding ourselves back, but we're not really sure where and what that looks like. And so first of all, recognizing, where that is. And so I think just starting off with a couple questions of, am I where I'd like to be? Because a lot of people will say, no, I'm not where I'd like to be. And so, and if I were, where is that you'd like to be? And let's see, some other questions that you could be asking yourself just to clarify, identify some stuff that's going on with you is, what is coming up that keeps coming up? Is there a pattern or a theme in your life that keeps showing its head? And you see it over here, maybe in your personal life, you see it here, you see it here in relationships. Like, what are those constant themes that you're noticing and recognizing in your life? Because that will give you some clues to as well. When I'm working with folks, I have them do a pretty lengthy screening with lots of different questions on there. And really, I'm just looking at, okay, what are they consciously aware of that's showing up in their lives? And most people, this is the phenomenal part. Most people, when they go through and answer those questions, they give me so much information. And so even if they don't know consciously what's creating that, I can look at that and say, oh, here's a big flag, here's a big flag, here's a big flag. Because when we look at issues like self-sabotage or anxiety or depression or any of those kind of bigger, what I call the forest, because it's such a global term. There's all these other, like, if you will, like little trees that make up that forest. And so when we get the big trees, we get those core beliefs cleared out, the cool thing about EFT, and one of the tools that I use, is it starts to wipe down the rest of the trees that are attached to it. And it's just profound. So you and I had talked recently about what is EFT, and EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And that's one of the many, many, many tools that I use. I joke and say that I've kind of put that on super speed, as far as, I incorporate other energy work and energy psychology and energy tools to lay on top of that, just to really clear out things really quickly for folks. Because as a therapist, with 20 years of experience, like clients would come in and say, okay, how are you feeling? And that's helpful. And the cognitive therapy is helpful. But when I realized the connection between the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how we can clear out such stuff so much faster and so much more effective, I'm like, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
And so I love utilizing that technique in addition to some of the other things to really just help propel people forward.
So for those people that are really, they have no idea what EFT is, can we just describe it a little bit? Like it's a tapping motion, but can you go
Yeah.
into a little bit of detail about why you
Yeah.
tap certain parts? And
Mm-hmm. So some people have heard of it as tapping therapy, some other terms that are out there. And so essentially what it is acupuncture without the needles. So most people are familiar with acupuncture, where they're using needles in the various meridians, and acupressure is using applied pressure to a certain point. And then EFT is using a tapping motion. So we want to stimulate those points that are on the body. So for those listening, I'm going to try to describe the points, and those that are watching, you guys get the benefit of seeing it in action. So the karate chop is right here on the side of your hand. So if you take your pinky and follow it down on the side, that's the karate chop. And you can use that when we're clearing out what we call reversals, because most people are, if we were to muscle test, and muscle testing is a way of kinesiology testing energy and information. And so most people are in self-sabotage when they come in and see. So using this point, it allows us to break through that sabotaging tendency to really clear them out, and then we can start the tapping.
Okay, one quick question is, can people do this for themselves, this tapping information? And
that's what I really enjoyed about this. When I was getting trained, how I got connected to this, I was actually in a class, and I used to be terrified, absolutely terrified of spiders. I mean, I can't even tell you, like I was beyond terrified. And I was in this class training, and there was a little tiny spider that was on the floor, and it comes crawling across. And I found myself like pulling my legs up into my chair. And then all of a sudden I start like to panic. And for like a few minutes, someone goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, so I leaned over and I was like, "I don't want to alarm you. I think we're all going to die." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "There's a spider in here, and I think we might all die." And I was like almost in like full panic. And I was just like, I couldn't contain it anymore. And so they actually, the professor of the class took a 15-20 minute break just for me to like calm myself down. And so there's a guy sitting next to me, and he's like, "I see that you're really terrified of spiders. Can I do this on my tapping thing on you?" And I'm like, "Okay, crazy guy." I was like, sure. Like I've had this fear for like, I don't know, probably at the time, like 23, 24 years. I'm like, sure, I'll do anything. He starts tapping and starts doing this and that. And I'm looking up and looking down and humming. And I'm like, this is like literally the craziest thing I've ever experienced. I'm like, what does this guy know? So I leave that class, and I was calm afterwards, came back, finished up the class. And like probably about 2 weeks later, I was out on a boat dock, and I had walked through, I was just walking through on the boat dock, and there was a spider web. And I had walked through the spider web, and I did not freak out. But I didn't know that I didn't freak out, okay, which was interesting. And then probably about a month later after that, there was a little tiny spider in our bedroom. So I went over and I took a tissue and I took it off the wall, and I went, and don't judge, but I flushed it down the toilet. And my husband looked at me and goes, "What did you just do?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, No, what did you just do?" And I'm like, "Well, there was a spider. I took care of it. Like, what's the big deal?" And he's like, "There was a spider, and you took care of it. We didn't have to call the police. We didn't have to call the fire department. We didn't have to evacuate the building. We didn't have to stay in a hotel for 2 days. Like, what's going on?" And I was like, oh my gosh, there was this crazy guy doing this tapping stuff on me. And so he actually was trained in thought field therapy, which is really the father of EFT. And so Gary Craig had taken that class and then realized that there was an easier way to teach people to make it more user friendly. And so that's how I got introduced to it. And then I was like, after being, just having this incredible phobia for so many years, I was like, there's something to this. And I've been, I don't know how many years ago that's been, probably close to about 15 years now. And I am absolutely still okay with seeing spiders and taking care of spiders. And it's just amazing.
that's incredible. That's really incredible. I mean, wow.
And so when we look at it, so EFT, if you think about it, So it's more of a Eastern based medicine where, in Chinese the Chinese culture around 5,000 plus years ago, they discovered these like energy circuits in our bodies. And so these meridians is either at the beginning of or at the end of these energy patterns. And so we can tap on those, and what it does is just release. So, EFT, like the principle of it says, there is a disruption, energetic disruption in the body. And so once we go ahead and like tap on these points, it releases that disruption, and it can kind of go back to the homeostasis. And so it's just profound. I've had, success story after success story. And now I apply it to business owners, and it seems like maybe a far stretch, but what happens is when we have these blocks in our business, when we have them, I was teaching a class at the chamber one day, and it was all these business owners that were terrified of cold calling, what they call cold calling. I like to call it connection calls, which is it has a different flavor to it. And it was amazing just to see the results after that. Like, I had people calling me and like letting me know, like, this is like how it's so much easier. I was able to close people. I mean, it's just really profound on how many ways in which you can use this in, pretty much anything we can use it on.
And I love that. And it's pretty incredible. I've had the experience of walking through a couple different situations with you just really quickly. And, what I really love about it is that you've not only are teaching this and you have different courses and you're using it with your clients, but you also have written a book that explains all of this. Yeah. And it walks you through a lot of the different things that Teri has in her toolbox. And I'm going to put the link to buy that book in the show notes, but I did want to mention that it's a really good resource for you if you are listening to this and you can't see the tapping points that we're going to walk through. She puts that in there, and I have created a download to go with this episode, so you can also just download the tapping points so you know where to tap. And then Teri, if you'll just walk us through just a general, we don't have to work on a specific problem or anything, but let's just walk through, what it would be like to start doing this for yourself.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, so the karate chop is on the side of the hand, like close to the pinky. You go down, it's kind of on that. So it's just the side of the hand there. And we can interchange, use that or on the sore spot. So if you were to take your hand and put it up towards your like chest to see it, like, I don't know, like when you do it, the Pledge of Allegiance, right? That spot right there, and if you rub it, it's supposed to feel a little sore. You can do on either side. And like you said, the folks that are not able to see this, she's going to send out a visual of these points as well. So, and then those 2 points can be used interchangeably. And how you start it out is you say, even though I have this blank, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So even though I have this, fear, we want to be as specific as possible. So maybe it's, even though I have this fear of speaking, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So we're going to do that on either the karate chop, which is here, or the sore spot, which is on your chest. And then we're going to say that 3 times, and then we go into the tapping point. And so when we're doing these tapping points, we're going to be saying a statement, if you will. And the reason why we say a statement is just to stay connected to that emotional place. Now, oftentimes people will start crying or people will start yawning. These are all great indicators that energy is shifting. And so if someone is crying, I may not even say anything any further for a period of time and just continue tapping at the point. So the next point is at the head point. So if you were to balance a book on the top of your head, it's right there at the top of the head point. The next point is closer to the eyebrow. So on your inner side of your eyebrows, that point right there. And on the side of the eyes, if you look, there's kind of like a little divot, I feel like. It's right there on the side of the eyes. And then underneath your eyes, right on the cheekbone there, is the next point. And then the nose point is just right under your nose. Some people are very ticklish, and so if they are ticklish, if you just pull that taunt like that and tap, it does not allow it takes away that little ticklishness for some folks. And then the chin is just right in the middle of the chin. And then The collarbone point is right here on the collarbone. And it really is 1 inch by 1 inch. So if you find your collarbone, go 1 inch by 1 inch. I'm wearing a necklace today, but I know where the point is. So it's just right there. And how I teach people is to hold your hand kind of like this. And
So it's
then,
like a loose fist for those of you listening.
yeah, it's like a loose fist. And I have some videos on my YouTube channel that demonstrates this as well. Or you can use two hands, but what I find when people use two hands, for some reason they end out further out beyond the point. I don't know what it is. Using a fist just really allows us to hit both of those points without going too far out. And then the next point is underneath the arm. It's about 4 inches underneath the arm. So for women, it's usually at the bra line. And we can tap both sides. We can tap just one at a time. It really doesn't matter. And then after we go through that point, then we go through the hand point. And the hand points first start off with the thumb. So either side, left or right, but it's on the closest to the side of the thumb, closest to the nail. And so you tap on that point. And then same place on the first finger. So you're going to tap on that side of the finger, like that. I'm going to try to show it on camera too. And then middle finger is the same place. And then we're going to skip our ring finger and we're going to go to our pinky. And the reason why we skip our ring finger is because Gary believed in systemizing everything and making it really user-friendly. And so that point is the exact same point as the next point that we're going to tap. So he just felt like it was redundant, so just skip it. So the next point is where we call the 9 gamut spot, where it's between the pinky and the ring finger on the back of your hand. And then you're going to tap that point too. So between the pinky and the ring finger, either on your left or right hand. And this is where it gets really silly, and I have people looking at me like, what are we doing this for? So while you're tapping, I have people close their eyes and then open their eyes. And then I have you look hard down left without moving your head. And then you're going to look hard down right without moving your head. And then you look in a circle up to a circle or an around. So you make your eyes go up and around without moving your head. And then you go the opposite direction while you're still tapping. And then from there, we hum 5 seconds of Twinkle Twinkle. We count to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we count again. Now, a lot of times, and then that's the end of that section, and that's as weird as it gets, I promise. So a lot of people always ask me, like, why do we do this? So what's happening in the brain, and I usually draw a little picture of the brain, and I draw this little like filing cabinet. And at night, when your brain goes to sleep, your brain is processing stuff, short-term memory, long-term memory, deleting this because I saved it in my phone or whatnot. Your brain is designing to go and file really beautifully into that. I always say it's like a little lateral filing cabinet in your brain. So that information is supposed to be going back into that lateral filing cabinet. When trauma happens, or perceived trauma, I think it's important to say, when trauma or perceived trauma happens, that information does not get filed away, because what happens is we go into a fight, flight, or freeze situation. And so it's almost as if there's a filing cabinet and I'm trying to throw something and file it, but it doesn't get into the filing cabinet. So it kind of hangs out there. And the way we know is because people get triggered. And so we often think that it has to be a conscious trigger. Most of the time, it's an unconscious trigger. So if you think about our brain, and if you hold your hands out all the way out and you wiggle your fingers and you see, we take in 180 degrees of information. And our brain is processing 400 billion bits of information every single second. And so when that information doesn't get filed, it kind of just hangs out there. And so we know that when we get triggered by something. Okay, so if I'm having coffee with you, Alyssa, and we're at the coffee shop, and I've had something traumatic happen, and maybe a traumatic car accident, and there's a car accident that's happening. You and I are having coffee, we're having a great time, and there's a car accident or screeching tires outside the coffee shop, and I'm engaged with you, but all of a sudden I hear my brain is going over there, and then all of a sudden, okay, now I'm starting to have a panic attack. And you ask me, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, because my brain picked up on this little tiny bit of information that's not even in my conscious awareness. And so what EFT does is allows the brain we activate the left hemisphere and then the right hemisphere. So when we're looking down hard left, we're activating the right hemisphere. When we're looking down hard left or right, we're activating the left, and vice versa. When we close our eyes, open our eyes, when we hum, when we count, we're activating different parts of the brain so that that information then gets an opportunity to get filed away. Now, I was mentioning earlier that this is not the Men in Black pin where it says, you have no more memory, because you will always have that memory. What EFT does is really takes away the emotional intensity of it and files it back in a way that your brain can process it and allows you to, kind of integrate it, incorporate it into your life so that you can still get, meaning and understanding and really the gifts out of situations without having it be completely throwing you off your game every single time you think about it, if that makes sense.
It does. And so I'm going to share just really quickly that I worked on a grief situation with Teri a few weeks ago. And it was very interesting because yesterday there was a song that came out on the radio that would have typically reminded me of this situation. And in the past, I would have had a very strong emotional reaction to it. And I could see myself going down that path, but it was almost like watching what I used to be and how I used to feel about it. And so I still had the grief. The grief was still there, and there was still a little bit of sadness, but it was almost like I was outside of it.
Yeah.
That sounds a little bit wacky, but it was like I could see that, yes, I'm still sad that is, that this person isn't here with me to have these experiences, but the actual emotional piece of it, of like breaking down and being a complete wreck about it, wasn't there anymore. And I just thought that was a really interesting perception on my end of the work that we did, because I was kind of waiting for it to come up again so I could talk to you about it.
And that was really quick. That was a really quick, little, taster session. I think that's a lot of times when I'm either teaching the class, and when I'm teaching class, we actually bring in experiential experiences. So we do actually have people. Phobias and food addictions are really easy to clear out very quickly. So I usually have people bring in certain foods so we can experience it right then and there. And then also like physical pains and elements that we have people experiment in the classroom with. And then usually depending on what things are coming up, we'll have, a situation or a trauma or things like that to clear out. And it's pretty amazing. When we're done, that's typically what people say. It's like, I feel like I'm outside myself. I feel like it's a memory. I don't have the emotional connection that it used to like just throw me off my game. It used to, take me into this deep, dark depression. It's there. It's the memory is there, but the emotional intensity is not there. Or I had this one lady came into my office one day, and she was just an emotional like wreck, and it was something that was impacting her business. And so I was like, let's just take a moment. Let's just really, what I was doing is trying to regulate her so that we could work on the things that she really desired to work on. And after like, I think we had about 3 rounds, so under 5 minutes, and she was just like, I can't believe we spent all that time on something that really wasn't bothering me. And I go, oh well. If you were a 10 when you first came in, and then she went to a 0, and she was like, oh, well, and so she didn't have awareness of like how badly she was presenting with it, which was kind of funny. And so I had to like kind of share, because I always take little notes so that I have something physically to show them where they're at. But it's amazing how, and I use this you can use this once you have learned this tool, you can use it on absolutely everything. I'm not a big fan of taking medication. So if I have a headache, I will use it for headaches. I use it to improve my golf game. If I'm working out and I have like a cramp or something, or, whatever, I use it on that piece. So you can use it on pretty much anything, on fear, on public speaking. I used this years and years and years ago on my own personal speaking or public speaking, because I was so afraid. I mean, you asked me 12 years ago to stand up and speak, I would have been like terrified. But I actually used EFT to clear out some of those phobias and fears that I had associated with speaking in public, just for my own, learning challenges as a child. So, I mean, you can use it in any way, and especially for those that are looking at how do I create more in my business, or how do I um, be in alignment with what I'm creating, or if I'm self-sabotaging, or if I'm procrastinating. These are things that we can look at to clear out, to really allow yourself to, show up for your best capacity, and to, really, propel your business forward.
Right. And one thing that I wanted to touch on that came to me while you were talking is, we always think we're in control of the show. And research has shown that 95% of everything that happens in our body and in our life is our subconscious. So when you were talking about healing those different things that are going on in your body, that may seem a little bit far out there to people, but I want to bring it back to those statistics that 95% of what's happening out here in the world has nothing to do with what we think we are controlling.
Right. Right.
And so, I mean, as far as, I'm just curious from my own perspective, we've talked about different issues, and you use the example of, taking down the trees of the forest with, certain blocks and stuff. How far back does some of this stuff go?
Oh my goodness. Well, when you think about our brain and how our brain is designed, so in the first 3 years, and even pushing that out to the first 7 years of our life, we are collecting information completely unconscious. And so all of that information is really shaping how our brain is designed. And so I studied a lot with Dr. Bruce Perry, who's kind of the brain guru, if you will. And so those experiences start to shape how our brain is designed. And so, our brain then goes from the reptilian part of the brain, and then it forms all the way up to the executive functioning of the brain. And our brain doesn't actually fully develop until around, some research says 25, most research says 26. So whichever one you read and believe, but around age 25 or 26 is when we get our frontal cortex completely online. So everything else, and then the brain builds upon, if you think about it, we start with the reptilian part of the brain, and then however that is formed and structured, our brain builds from there, and then it builds from here, and then it builds all the way out. So if we don't have a really solid, foundation, the rest of the brain is built upon that. Okay, so that's some interesting information. So, but if we grew up in an environment that wasn't safe, or we didn't perceive as safe, or we got messages that were not good enough, or most belief systems really can be boiled down to, I'm not blank enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not, whatever those enoughs are. Those belief systems are unconsciously starting being created early as, the first 3 years of our life, which is sometimes hard to believe. But then we go through, and then, as I've talked many times, is we have this part in our brain called the reticular activation system. And so that part in the brain is always scanning and seeking out evidence. And so we scan the environment. If we believe that we're not good enough, our brain will scan and find information to support that. It says, well, you didn't pass that test, must not be good enough. Well, you messed up over here, you didn't do the tour, and so our brain is going, yep, evidence, evidence, evidence. And then pretty soon we have this huge belief system that is not serving us, because most of the time this information is being given to us. It's not our stuff. It's other people's insecurities. That's other people's, I've been told so many times in my life that I couldn't do something because it wasn't about me. It was about them. And they weren't able to live up to their dreams or their potential. And so they put it onto me. And for a long time, I owned some of this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't my story. And so what EFT has done for me, and along with some of the other energy tools that I use, is it has broken away from what is mine is mine. What is someone else's, I'm giving that back, because I'm not going to take that and own that, because that holds me back personally and professionally when I've taken on other people's stories.
Right.
That's not serving me today.
Right. So if we relate that to, say, your business, and you're not making enough money in your business, a lot of those core beliefs may be coming from your parents, and, hearing, money doesn't grow on trees and you have to work really hard for money.
Yep. It's amazing how people can just relate. They're like, here, especially when it comes to I had an individual in here not too long ago. And in our third session, she was like, I'm desperate for clients. I don't have enough clients. And so we cleared out. It was actually interesting because it was a money block that was in a relationship to someone very close to her. So as soon as we cleared that piece out of it, she was that third week. Now, granted, she did what I told her to do, which was key because I had her doing some other work as well, so that she could really generate into her business. But we cleared out some of these key blocks. And within that third week, she was able to close 7 clients, which to me and you, that's not bad, right? But she was another coach. And so that 7 clients equaled $35,000 in her business. And to me, like how many of us would like to have $35,000 weeks, right? In our business? I'll take that all day long, right? And
Exactly.
that's the profound result of, when we clear out those blocks and we can actually, see them show up, like going, wow, because I don't have that block that's holding me back anymore. And now I can receive and generate more in my business, which to me is super sexy.
Well, and it can be really frustrating as an entrepreneur to be doing the work and creating everything you're creating and, getting out there and doing the networking and doing all of the things that you need to do to grow your business and then still not see success. Well, if you're at that point and you're an entrepreneur, this may be the very tool that you need to implement and the systems that you need to implement just so that you can propel and make that money that you deserve to make.
I think that a lot, I don't know this for certain, but the research says that in the first 5 years, 50% of businesses go out of business, and I hear so many. I receive phone calls. Man, I'm so frustrated. I'm doing everything that I'm quote supposed to do, right? I'm doing the networking. I'm getting out there, and I'm just not making ends meet. And I heard an alarming statistic the other day, and I was like blown away that only 4% of entrepreneurs are making over $40,000 or more. And I was like, what? 4%. And to me, that's like that. I mean, go get a job. I mean, at that point, but I think what happens is we go into entrepreneurship and we think, oh my gosh, I get own my own business, set my own hours, and all these amazing, yummy things. But at the same time, I'm responsible for that, making that cash register ring. And if I have any beliefs that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not competent enough, or whatever those belief systems that are holding me back, I'm not going to see the results or the outcomes that I would like to see in my business in a quick, in a fast way.
I'm even going to take it one step further. And, I believe that we live in a limitless universe, that money is limitless, that time is limitless, and that the limitations we put on it are usually learned in that reptilian brain. And that, unless we unlearn that as entrepreneurs, look at it as, just printing money. They print money all day, every day, billions and billions of dollars. There's billions and billions of dollars out there for us to go get. And the block is not money. The block is not time. The block is us. And so I love that you've given an alternative, easy way that people that they can get started and see the results, and then they can come and learn more from you and work more with you.
If you think about it, money is energy, right? And so how do we treat energy, and how are we treating this? Are we receiving it? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, we have this giving mentality, and I think it's brilliant. But we have to be able to give from our abundance. And, so we always giving, but then oftentimes, and I'm going to say this, I may not be liked by many by when I say this, but we're not willing to receive, because there's a part of us as well. If I receive, then, I'm being whatever, right? But in order for energy to work, there's always a give and a take, There's a give and a receive. And so if I'm not allowing myself to receive that back, I'm actually, essentially what I'm doing is cutting off the energy. So if you and I were playing catch, I throw the ball to you, you're receiving it, you throw it back to me, I'm receiving it, giving or receiving, right? But if you throw it to me and I block it and I put my hands up and don't receive it, the ball will drop, right? It will take it out of circulation, it'll take it out of that flow. And so I think a lot of times we're not willing to receive it. And so that in itself is usually a block for people. And as soon as we clear out that block that says, why are you not allowing yourself to receive the goodness in life? I'm like, oh yes, well I was told that, I can't make more money than my parents, or I can't do this, or if I make money, money is evil, or, whatever the story is around that piece. Because like you said, we were actually born with only 2 fears. That's it. 2 fears. Every single thing else is learned. So the brilliance in this, if it can be learned, it can be unlearned, right? So, so EFT will help. So what it does is kind of help break that connection that's happening in the brain. So right now, like this means this. Well, when we break those patterns in the brain, this is, oh, actually this could mean something else. That's when it gets really juicy and really fun to play with, because then we can play in that place of possibilities, and that we can play in the limitless, possibilities that the universe brings us. And then honestly, that's why my book was called Be the Magic of You, because my clients kept leaving and they said, oh my goodness, I feel magical. I feel like I have a magic wand. And so that's how the title came about, because I'm like, oh, Be the Magic of You it does allow us to feel pretty magical, and we can create on demand.
That's awesome. And so just so you all know out there in TV and radio land, I have created a download for you, and you can find it at alisaconnor.com/podcast that will walk you through what we just talked about with Teri to get you started. But Teri, before we let you go, you have so many exciting things going on, and I really want you to talk about one, the planner that you have available, because that's been a great tool for me, but also all of your upcoming events and trainings and places that people can find you.
Yes, well, you can always check me out on my website. It's talkingwithteri, TERI.com. All my events and everything that you'll need to know is right there. I also have a Facebook Live. It's every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, that I jump on, share nuggets. It's always a great time. And then, of course, like you said, the Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life best-selling book is available on the website, as well as any major bookstore, and available on Amazon as well. And then the Daily Intentions Planners. So I created these planners essentially for myself. Let's be honest. I had created this planner and I started using it for myself, because I was like, how do I organize and be very intentional with creating and applying not only the law of attraction, but also brain science, to be very intentional every single day of clearing it, spending my day out. And I'll be honest, I was traveling last Friday, and I actually did not do mine because I was so busy. And I was like out of sorts the next day. I'm like, what is it? What's wrong? What did I do today? And I was like, oh, I didn't set my intentions today. So what this does is allows us to tap into the law of attraction and our brain, and really become intentional, and allows us to create and be very intentional every day of creating and generating in our life and in our business. So those are available as well online and on the website. And in here shortly, they will be also available at some other locations as well.
Nice. And I love that intentions planner. And you really do feel kind of wackadoo if you don't use it. So it's really, it puts everything else into action. Like it's the action piece of it, of doing it every single day and keeping yourself accountable for what you want to accomplish. And then I love that it has a little gratitude that you fill out at the end of the day, because attitude of gratitude brings more to you.
That's right.
So, well, thanks so much, Teri, for being here. Your nuggets and your information and knowledge are just invaluable. And I really hope that you all will tune in to some of what Teri has taught us, and the information that she shared with us today, to see if it works for you. Again, grab that free download. The link is in the show notes, and as well as all the links to connect with Teri. So thanks again, Teri, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Feed You Podcast at www.alisaconnor.com/podcast.